Tonight, our Mountain Monday program, Basic Photography. Seems like most everybody brought their cameras and looks like some really great equipment. I was asked to take a picture of the Breathitt County office today for their website. Just I happened to be at the wrong place at the right time, I guess. And I don't even know what camera I would use, Steve, but I couldn't even begin to operate it. I think I had to take about 15 shots before I had something that was in focus and all that. So I need this training more than just about anybody else.
You can listen, you can listen.
I am.
Did you bring your camera?
I don't have a camera
Oh.
yet. But you're supposed to be telling me which is the best camera to buy, right?
Oh,
Is that part of
that's
tonight's
it?
program?
We'll
Okay.
see. We'll see
All
what
right.
we do.
Well, your speaker tonight is Steve Patton. Steve is a photographer, University of Kentucky, and the College of Agriculture. And if you pick up a lot of our publications and magazines and things like that, you can see a lot of Steve's absolutely beautiful work. I mean, I am truly a fan of Steve's photography. He's been great to us here at the Robinson Center, comes to all of our field days and events, takes lots of pictures, things that we use in other publications, a way to kind of promote our program. So you're very fortunate that you've got Steve here tonight because he is a professional and he is a great speaker and teacher. So I'm going to leave it at that. One last thing I'll say. Our next Mountain Monday program, which is March the 11th, is grafting and pruning. So if that has any appeal to you, if you always want to learn how to graft, please pre-register. There is a $10 fee, but with that fee, you get, I think, 5 pear and 5 apple rootstock. So if you've ever been fascinated by the science of grafting, please call our office, get registered, you pay at the door that evening. Got any other questions, give us a call. Other than that, I'm going to turn it over to Steve and let him take off.
Cool. Just like to show you, I do have a picture of the Blue Bridge. So when they tear it down, you still got a memento. I'm excited to be here. I love doing this kind of stuff. I talk fast.
Turn it back off.
We got plenty of time, I think. Oh, shoot. Testing 1, 2. All right, here we go. I'm probably gonna blow this thing out, but anyway. I've been a photographer at UK for 22 years now. And what's so cool about it is every day is different. Some of them are good, some of them are not so good. But every day is different. And I think it's exciting because there's always something new to learn. I'm learning right along with you. I'm just a couple steps ahead of you, I hope. If anybody's ahead of me, then come work for me. I need help. You know what? Everybody else, turn off your phones, including me. Turn mine down so it doesn't go crazy like that. Okay. Photography. All right. What we can do is we're pretty flexible. We've got a couple hours. We can go a lot of different directions. I got some basic things I want to talk about, but then we can kind of steer in a lot of different directions. How many of you did not bring your camera with you? Okay, 2, 1.5. I got a couple extra ones too. All right, everybody else that has your camera, how many of you don't have your manual? Do not have your manual. You can leave now. No. Let me start with that. Why would I want you to have your manual? It tells you a lot of things about your camera, yes. A good case in point, I was doing one of these seminars. We had a break. Someone came up to me with their camera, and he said, I've been trying to make this thing do such and such. And if you bring your camera up to me, I don't know, Rebel from Fuji, from, you know, in terms of how to use them. I have a new camera I just got last week. I can't even figure out all the buttons on it. So I'm trying to study the manual and trying to figure it out as I go. So what happened was I said, okay, do you have your manual with you? And he said, yes, I do. I said, well, here's what you're looking for. See if you can find it. He came back and sat down, and he came back about 10 minutes later and said, I found it. That's what your manual's for. Because I can't answer, there's no expert that can answer all of your questions about all your different cameras. The best expert you got is your manual. If you don't have your manual, you can't find your manual, almost always, I mean 99.5% of the time, you should be able to go online, go to whatever camera maker it is, Fuji, Canon, Nikon, and type in your camera and you can find a manual for it, and you can download it. So you always can have one available. It's not as convenient unless you put it on your iPhone. There's cool things now like Dropbox, the cloud. You put that manual up on the cloud, and as long as you can access your internet, you can get your stuff. And you actually can put it on your phone if you have enough space for it. It don't take up that much room. Of all the things that are important, that's probably one of them if you use your camera a lot. So, that's important. Tell me what you expect to learn tonight. I'll see if I can teach it to you. What do you want to know?
I want to know more about depth of field.
Depth of field, good one.
Taking better pictures.
Taking better pictures, we can do that too. What else?
My goal is I'm taking pictures of elephants in the night or in the morning.
Yes.
I'm using the night icon, but that's not good enough.
It's not working? What do your pictures look like? Are they real grainy? Are they fuzzy?
The dark, lights.
Are you shooting on, well, we'll get into it. Okay, all right, we'll talk about some of that stuff. That's a good one too. Neat, what else? What do you want to know?
Pictures for the internet.
Or the internet, okay, how do we do that? That's a good one too. Talk about sizing and how many pixels and all that kind of good stuff. Very good question. Bottom line is, you don't need all the pixels that you can take with your camera. Let's see. How many know, without looking, how many know how many megapixels your camera will shoot? Don't look. I got all right, come on, hold it up there. Be brave, hold it up, hold up. All right, how many megapixels? 12, okay? 10. 15. All right. Anybody else brave enough? Anybody know? Why is that important? We'll get into that. Okay, let's see. What shall we do first? What happened to this one? I need a couple volunteers to just kind of pass these out. There's 25, I think, there. Let's jump right into it, and we'll just start running through some basic stuff about cameras. That's where we start. Okay. First thing you need to know, that's why I asked about it, is where's your manual? Your manual, if you have a camera case, should be in your case. It should always be with you. For the very express purpose of, I just asked you how many megapixels. We'll give you one. I may have a few others if there's not enough floating around there. Over here, Dave.
Yep.
Look at there, that's somebody's manual. Who needs that manual? Somebody has that XDI. This is my camera. I carry this thing around with me. I carry a camera, the manual around for my camera, for my flash, for my lenses. If I have a question and anything about shooting, I don't have time to go running back to the studio. Or if I come down here from Lexington to take pictures and I have a question about how come something's not working right, I gotta have an answer. And so hopefully my manual will tell me. And here's where it helps me, because when I first started, I had an opportunity to buy a camera system exactly like what I had in the UK. I had my personal one, and I had my UK one. They're exactly the same. I still have that camera, that's my personal camera, but I've moved up about 3 notches on my cameras at UK. So I'm shooting all day with this thing, and I go home on the weekend and I want to shoot with my camera. I can't remember how to change the things around in it. I have both an SD card and a CF card in mine, both of those, which I'm fortunate. And I can't remember how to change one or the other in my personal one because it's different. The buttons are all different. The places where you find all the information is different. It drives me loony, so I keep going back to my manual, start from scratch again, learn my manual all over again. That's what they're for. Okay, I have this little camera, which is cool. We gave these out to the kids that were in the science program. It's a Fujifilm XP50. And the reason we got it for them is because it's waterproof, shockproof, dustproof, and freeze-proof. But we told them, don't test it. Yeah. we thought, and it's not that expensive. And the doggone little thing will take 1080p movies. And I did a little test at home, I was trying to learn how to use this so I could teach them. And I thought I could just jump into the picture. It was that three-dimensional. It was just amazing what that thing can do. But, all right, the second thing you need to know, and here's why you need to know how many megapixels your camera is. What size memory do you need? How many pictures can you get on one of those memory? Who has more than 4 megapixel memory card? How many know how many, uh-oh, here we go. Here we go. All right, folks. There's going to be a test at the end of our session tonight. All right? You better know how many megapixels your camera is, how much memory you have. All right? And what your settings are in your camera. We're going to talk about them, so it's not like anything new by the time we get through tonight. But you need to know these things. They're important. All right. Does anybody know how big their memory card is? Anybody? You just look.
4 gigabytes.
4 gigabytes. 8 gigabytes. 8. 16. All right. 4, 2, 32. Yeah, you're way ahead of me. Wow. Okay, here's another question. How many have more than one memory card? Raise your hand. That's good. No, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. Not a problem. Well, we'll get there. That's good. All right, here's the deal. The more megapixels your camera takes, the more space it takes up. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But you've got the CF cards, which is the bigger card, and most of them, how many of them take the smaller card, the little SD card? Do what everybody takes? Everybody take the CF card? And think, you does? Okay. Mine takes both, but yeah, there's not many of them that take that anymore. We're moving on. This is a card reader that will read those cards. Most people will, all right, let me ask you, okay, this is a good question. I talked to somebody, and I won't say who it was, but they were at UK, and they were having trouble because they'd run out of space on the card. And I said, well, did you transfer them over to the computers? No, I just went back through and deleted stuff I didn't need. I said, what? She didn't know how to transfer stuff over to a computer. There's 2 different ways you can do it, at least 2, probably more. One is to take your card out of the camera, put it in a reader that's connected to your computer, and the program will read and transfer those things over. The other way is to just hook a port up directly from your camera to your computer and transfer them directly across. The advantages of maybe a card reader might be speed. The transfer software built into most cameras is not necessarily what I call state-of-the-art, high-end speed. So it might take a while to transfer one. We'll talk a little bit more about that hopefully at the end. We're going to kind of hit this stuff, just kind of bounce along. We're going to get into more. Do you have all the dates on the calendar for the other sessions? Do you know?
No.
Have we not talked about that? Did I send you some dates? All right, well, I have 3 dates on my calendar. We had talked about doing this series later.
I was hoping
So I have 3 days. Hopefully they'll jive with your calendars. I tried to skip around Mountain Monday and all that. The plan is, when we talked back a ways, was to do this and kind of hit all the areas and then do a kind of more intensive 3-session presentation later on where we kind of delve into the details a little bit more. So this is kind of smattering all this stuff, and if you go away kind of in that spinning, there's going to be other opportunities to try to straighten that stuff out and get it fog. But with transfers, there's a question, okay, where do you put them? How do you find them again? Et cetera, et cetera. So we'll get into those things. All right, how many megapixels? This is the kind of chart that you need to know how many megapixels your camera is and how big your memory card is. That'll help you understand, depending on some other factors we're going to talk about, how many images you can get on that card. And then how many cards you have to have in your bag to be able to shoot all day long at some fair or vacation or whatever you're up to. You can find these charts online, and this is just an approximation because there's a lot of variables that go into this. But just to give an idea, okay, here's an 8 megapixel camera or card, and here's a 10 megapixel. So this says, let's see, what is this based on? High resolution camera setting, shooting at the normal or low resolution. Oh, this is at the high res. That can't be right. 8 meg, 8, 10 gig, 1,800 pictures. Really? Okay. I'll take their word for it. Now, they say that's based on high resolution. You can shoot normal, which is a little lower, or you can shoot a low resolution, which means you can get a bazillion images on your camera, but none of them will worth anything because they won't look good. All right, they just kind of all fall apart. But anyway, this gives you a ballpark idea. The new cameras and the new memory cards lets you store a lot of pictures. That means you're going to have a lot of pictures to transfer and put somewhere. We'll talk about that. But one of the cool things about digital to me is that you don't have to save every picture that you shoot. All right? If it's a bad picture, get rid of it. Don't keep it. If it's a good scene, it's something you really enjoy, take a bunch of them. You know, you can go back and sort out the best of the best and get rid of the rest if you want. Now, before I go there, how many of you know what kind of battery that your camera uses? What kind of a battery is in there? Do you have a second battery? I have a backup battery. How many have a backup battery? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay.
I worked really hard to find one at Walmart. I have to order it.
Yeah, that's a problem. That's a problem. Okay, this little guy, let's see, do I have it on here? It uses this little battery. You're not going to probably find this battery in Walmart either. So if you want a backup battery, and I don't have one for this, but this is kind of a toy I've been using just for teaching purposes, and I really haven't been using it as a regular camera. But if I were, I encourage the kids that they needed to get a second battery if they really wanted to be serious about using that camera and taking a lot of pictures. The cool thing about these batteries these days is they last longer, and they just seem to have a lot of power, which is good. I have not charged this thing, and usually batteries with time will slowly trickle out. I have not charged this thing in over a month, and it's still at full power, supposedly. Now, I'm sure it's trickled some, but I haven't used it that much either. But the point is, these batteries these days are better than they've ever been. And it's always, you might be able to shoot for a week. But the problem is, with these batteries, they don't just slowly trickle down, they kind of jump off a cliff. So they'd be running along and then you got nothing. So, one of the cool things, this is one for my new camera. And I don't have a backup for it yet. Because we made a mistake in our order, and we only got enough to make it run. One of the cool things is some cameras and accessories in there will use AA batteries. And I always have encouraged people, when you're looking for a new camera, if you can find a camera that runs on regular AA batteries, get it. And then get rechargeable batteries to operate it. But if you run out, you can go to any Walmart or dime store or wherever and find some AA batteries that'll get you by.
That's what I wanted to ask you about. My camera doesn't have a pack. I use lithium batteries.
You use lithium batteries. Okay. Can you get those as a rechargeable?
No,
Oh.
but they do. I mean, they last, these lithium batteries usually last me probably, maybe a month.
That's not very good. Let me see one, can you pull that for me?
Lonnie has to make one.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, but these are AA size. So you could use AA batteries. You could use regular AA batteries.
But lithium.
Okay, we'll talk about that. Let me see. Okay. AA battery, a lithium energizer battery, okay? But this battery right here is also a AA battery, and it's rechargeable. And the cool thing about this battery is it's called Max E. Most batteries, when you charge them up, they immediately start to trickle back down. You know, they lose over time, they'll lose just a little bit of energy every day. And over the course of about a month, they'll be down almost probably to the point where they're not really charging up to run in your camera. So you have to recharge them if you don't use them. This battery is a new breed that's made to hold its charge. After a year, it will hold at least 90% of its charge, which is not as good as regular AA batteries if they're not being used, but darn well close. So that you could charge these up, put them in your bag, carry them around all year. If you needed them, stick them in there and they get you by so you get back somewhere and get them full charge. I'm trying to remember, a set of these, I think a set of 4 of those is maybe $12 to $15. Then you have to buy the charger for it, which is not cheap either. But it's an investment that then you just totally, and we go through these, we've got so many of those batteries running around, and everything I have takes AA batteries. I have 2 flashes, so that's 8 batteries right there. I have a energy pack that goes onto my flashes. That takes 8 more. So now I'm up to 16 batteries, and I haven't even talked about some of the other equipment that I use that take 2 batteries each. And I've got my mouse. I have wireless mouse and wireless pad. Those each take 2 batteries, and I've been putting these in there because I can recharge them. I don't have to just keep doing those, throwaway Duracells all the time. So there's a lot of good things about these type of batteries. Now you can get other batteries as well. So what I'm saying is though that this is a high energy battery, but these are just as energy efficient as these are as far as power goes. It would save you having to buy them. What do you pay for these? Like $6, $7, $8 a piece? For how much? $3 a piece?
I get 8 for $3.
8 of them for $3. That's a pretty good price. But it take a while to get you, by the time you bought these and the charger. But you don't have to be throwing those things away and just throw them in the trash can. They go into the environment, So it's one of those things that I like to encourage people to use rechargeables if you can. And if you have the other kind, like most of our cameras do, then you just need to buy a backup. And make sure, this is a charger. That charger is probably, I forget, $30 or $40. So it's not cheap. But they are very efficient, and they will tell you when your battery is no longer good. I mean, they're only good for so many charges, and sometimes they go bad and you don't know it. That thing, it talks to you. It's kind of crazy. All right, those are nickel metal hydride, and that's kind of the new breed. The old nickel cadmium batteries used to have a memory, and if you didn't do them just right, they would, after a year or two, they'd just be worthless. So these new ones, they don't have a memory. They really work well. The amount of energy those things give out keeps going up. The first rechargeable battery I got, my first camera was a little Kodak, almost like a point and shoot thing. And the rechargeable batteries that they sent with it were like, I think they were like 500 or 600 milliamps. So this is what today, over like 10, 12 years, they've practically tripled and quadrupled in the power that they can capture in those things. And they have to because our cameras take a lot more energy to run. So there's just a lot going on there, but those are things to think about. You need to think about what size, how many pixels your camera shoots, how big your memory is, what kind of batteries you have, and do you have a backup battery? Okay? That's what we've covered so far. Now we get into the really crazy stuff. This is what you're going to know. by the time we're done tonight about your cameras. This is another reason that you have your manuals, because you're not going to have all this stuff off the top of your head, and if you write a bunch of notes, you're still not going to remember all this stuff. But we're going to talk about these things, and almost, I don't think anybody has a camera that can't set something here in terms of settings. Somebody may have one that's almost all automatic, but even these little cameras, you can set various things on them, and they have a manual mode. Okay, so ISO has to do with light. Photography is totally about light and light sensitivity. And when we shoot film, film had an ISO or an ASA. It had a film speed. That meant that the sensitivity to light, all the way from 50 up to probably, what, 400? Something like that. And then they came out with 800 and then 1600, and photographers would go crazy with their stuff and start manipulating it in the darkroom and all that kind of good stuff. But basically, they transferred that information and that science over to digital and the image sensor in your camera. And they can control electronically the sensitivity to light. Now, there's trade-offs. The more energy you kick through the sensors, the more side effects you might have, let's say. Does that make sense? You kind of follow that? In other words, do you remember when they used to talk about film and somebody would shoot in a real dark situation and they talk about having grain? You know, the film had a grain to it, and they say the darker it was and the more they tried to push it and everything, the larger the grain until they got to big golf ball sized grains in it. Well, the trade-over from that to the digital is that the darker it is, and the more you try to push the light sensitivity of your camera, the more, well, what do they call it? They call it digital noise. It's like all those sensors, if they can't read what color to make, they just make it black. And the more of those you get, the more goofy your picture starts to look. You've got a lot of black spots all over it. It's like it's full of holes. Well, it is full of holes because they can't read the light, so they don't pick anything, and it just goes dark. And the more of those you get, the uglier your picture gets. The cool thing is that the newer cameras, the more they keep coming out with these new cameras, they have some way they figure out how to make them more sensitive to light. So instead of like having from 100 ISO, which is kind of the basic daylight, reading, if you're outside in a nice bright day like today was, 100 ISO would be great. To inside, up to about 800 ISO, and here I can take a pretty decent picture with this light that's on right now, or better, keep on going. Used to be if you went over 1600, which my camera there only goes to 1600 ISO. My new camera, and I'm not kidding, the number is 256,000. Not 1,600, 256,000. So that's 1,600 to 256,000. It's crazy. I haven't tried it yet, but the sensitivity of these new cameras is just outstanding. So that means that I can take pictures practically at night, like night vision, so to speak. So we'll see how good that really is. I don't know. Might take care of your out situation. So you may have to just ditch that camera and go get a new one. eBay. Oops. Heart attack. Is there a medic in the house?
Yes.
Okay. So, ISO, sensitivity. Carry this thing around. Whoops. Go back. Hello. Okay. We already talked about that. All right. So, f-stop. Now I'm going to lose about half of you on this one. It's going to get wild. Okay. We're talking about light. Everything is light, okay? Everything's based on light. So, your camera has the ability to open and close to let more or less light in. The less light it will let in, the larger the number. Why they did it that way, it seems totally backwards to me, but it's mathematically based, And to a mathematician, it makes perfectly good sense. But to us commoners, it's just backwards. The bigger the hole, the smaller the number, more light, all right? So there's a direct proportional balance between the ISO sensitivity and the f-stop. So if I had an ISO of 200 and an f-stop of f4, okay? If I make it more sensitive to light, which means I go from 200 to 400, it's twice as sensitive to light. If I shrink the amount of light coming through the aperture down to f8, I still have the same amount of exposure going on. Now, what that means is I now have some control to do what this gentleman was asking about, is to control depth of field. That's where your controls come in depth of field. Based on the light, and we'll, wish I had a clicker. Okay. The bigger the opening, the less depth of field. That means front to back. What's in focus? Further away and closer. The bigger the opening, the smaller the number, like 1.4, the less depth of field you've got. Okay, if I want to change this, then I have to change the amount, the f-stop. I have to make the opening less. Okay? If I do that, then I have to change something else to balance out. If it's the same light in both situations, I have to balance that out. But I can, because I have at least two things, I actually have three different ways to control how I'm dealing with the light. So in this situation, I've got a depth of field that goes beyond the flowers, okay? To make what would be a really nice picture of the flowers, I don't need to see all the background. It's not important. You can see all the grass and everything. So I change a couple of settings, and I get this. Where now, all you want to focus on is the flower. That's controlling depth of field, but it's counteracted by your ISO so that you still have the same amount of sensitivity on your lens. Does that make sense? There's a lot of stuff going on there. You follow what I'm doing?
Are you taking the picture and then you're doctoring it up afterwards?
Nope.
Like this?
Those are two different pictures at the same setting, one after the other. I changed the settings on my camera to get both of those pictures. Okay? On the first one, I shot it probably, let's say I shot at f5.6. On this one, I shot probably at f2.8. Okay? The wider opening, the smaller the number, the wider the opening, the less depth of field. So that means I have to be real sharp and critical about my focus on the flower, because it's going to be in focus, and everything else in front and behind it is going to be out of focus. And in order to do that, if I change the size of the opening, I'm changing the amount of light, so I have to counteract that light setting somewhere else. We'll talk about that some more, because there's
What
Part
okay.
of the camera, would you change that in?
Pardon me?
what would you change the eyes on?
All right,
What about on the camera?
on your camera, that's what your main one's for. Let's deal with one more thing, and then we'll come back to that. That's a good question. It's not a,
I think that's what's confusing everybody, because we don't know what.
yeah, I understand. We're going to get into that. So this is the other thing, is the shutter speed. All right, we've talked about the ISO, which is light sensitivity. We've talked about the aperture, which is the size of the opening. Now we're going to talk about the shutter, which slides across the opening, and that changes too. You can change the speed of the shutter. And when you change the speed of the shutter, you're affecting the light as well. So you have three things now that can affect how much light you're getting into the camera. The ISO, the aperture, and the shutter. Okay? A fast shutter will stop action. Okay? So you can stop water, you can stop runners, you can stop airplanes, you can stop helicopters. You got, how can a helicopter hang up there when the shutter is not even rotating? What's going on? If you shoot at a slow shutter speed, you can get a blurred action in the same shutter. All right, same place, same time, just change a couple of settings on the camera. But if you change one setting, you have to counteract it with another setting to balance out the light coming into the camera. Is that, I mean, that's pretty easy. You use something twice as fast here, you gotta go half as fast over here, or open up over here to balance out. I wish I had a, let's see, how do I do this? This is hard without a board. I need a board. I gotta do this.
You mean like a dry erase board?
Yeah, you have
Here's
one?
one.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great.
Can you tell me what ISO is?
ISO is the light sensitivity. I don't remember what that, it's international standards or something. Okay? That might be in your manual too, I don't know. But basically it has to do with light sensitivity. And let's say 100 ISO is less sensitive than 200. 200 is twice as sensitive. 400 is twice as sensitive as 200. 400 is 4 times as sensitive as 100. Okay? And it keeps going. So the idea would be if you're outside on a bright day, you don't need as much sensitivity on that setting. So you can be at 100 to 200. And then you change all your other settings, your f-stop and your aperture to control your light. Now, your cameras have all these different settings on it, and they set up the program, it does all that thinking for you, okay? But if you really want to be good, and you want to deal with depth of field, then you have to get into the manual mode, and you have to understand these things, you have to play with them. That's how you understand them, is just play around with them. So you could take a series of pictures of something and just change one thing, and see how the light changes on your camera. And then you go back and you set it, and then you change something else instead. And start to see how they interrelate. So, look.